Hello and welcome to my post commentary for this match because my audio was not recording good and I had my microphone pointed away from me and I was a very big dummy head. We are going against a water deck. I wonder what it could be. I don't wonder what it could be. It is post-match and we're just sitting here yapping about the game itself. My apologies, I was turning my ceiling lamp on while I was waiting for that. I wasn't too concerned about Popplio at this point. I have a Poke Center Lady in my deck somewhere. Cresselia is not going to be able to attack for at least another turn. It does mean that I could potentially be put to sleep. And then if I don't have my Pokemon Center Lady, I am susceptible to an 80 damage from my opponent's Primarina themselves. They also have a giant cape, which does make things a little bit more complicated. I don't necessarily know why they put the cape on their Popplio here. It doesn't take it out of range of Cresselia, although it does take it out of range of a INDEEDEE being able to attack. But like I have a Cresselia, I have 2 retreat costs. I don't necessarily know what my opponent was thinking that I was going to do. I did go ahead and Iono because I didn't have very good cards. I essentially got the same cards back. Instead of a Gardevoir, I got a rare candy. And I traded one piece for another. And it's just not much of a better hand, but at the very least it does thin Iono from my deck. This is one of the cases that Copycat would have been better, just a second Copycat. I feel like second Copycat can be good, but it can also not be so great. People are playing their hands down a lot these days. They're playing it to ridiculous sizes, so on top of Iono being a mulligan, especially if you have a larger hand, which I perhaps should have waited, especially with so many cards in my deck. But I guess it I guess it shuffled a Gardevoir to the top of my deck, so it doesn't matter too much in the long run. I debated using my giant cape there, but it doesn't really take me out of range of anything at this moment in time. It might help a little bit later since it is essentially a potion, healing there for 20 HP, and I can now heal Cresselia for 60 HP every turn, and then I could heal 80, which I was anticipating from a Primarina EX here. Primarina EX with 1 energy deals 40 and 2 energy deals it deals 80. Sabrina doesn't really do anything to me here. I can just put INDEEDEE up and retreat as long as it wakes up. It does make it a little bit more susceptible to Howl in a turn or two, especially if they had put the second energy onto their Popplio. But they probably did that to avoid getting knocked out by INDEEDEE in case it woke up or something. But Cresselia KOs it in 1 turn anyway, so I'm not 100% certain what my opponent was doing here. But now is where you get to see Cresselia's prowess, and we'll be able to commentate that as the match kind of goes on. And I gotta make sure that these audios are synced up. I draw the Gardevoir there. I thought about playing May. It doesn't necessarily do anything for me. I want a second Pokemon in my hand. Getting a second INDEEDEE is definitely important here. I'm not necessarily interested in having 2 Gardevoirs on my bench. It can, it at the end of the day works exactly the same as having 2 INDEEDEEs on your bench. But it does require a little bit more effort. It requires that Curlia, it requires that rare candy to get it online. Not ideal in my opinion. So I elected not to play May and not to look for my other INDEEDEE at this time, just because if I don't draw it, then it wastes the May. But I am going to take 80 damage from Primarina here, which, like I said earlier, I do have the giant cape to play around that. I can, be stronger than it, haha. I don't draw my second INDEEDEE here. I feel like probably the play was to put my second CRESSELIA onto my bench, perhaps. But saving that slot for INDEEDEE can be just as important. I like to put the Kirlia away just because I have the same chance of drawing it back as I have of drawing a rare candy. So it doesn't necessarily affect my odds, but if I don't have my Ralts and I don't have my Gardevoir, I can't necessarily work towards getting that second source of healing on my bench. I don't play Ralts yet, just because I don't want to really risk anything like a Sabrina. Gardevoir is able to retreat in one turn, but Ralts goes down in one, and I'd rather my opponent not have a point on the board. That's pretty dangerous, especially with CRESSELIA. My opponent does heal for, I don't remember how much here. At bare minimum, they heal for 60 damage, which means CRESSELIA is effectively only dealing 20 to it every single turn. I think at some point I debated like playing down playing my INDEEDEE out and damaging that. I don't remember my reasoning here necessarily. I don't really play around how. I do play around a Cyrus and a retreat. I don't necessarily know if that's the call. How seems pretty scary here. But if my opponent does play how, that means they can't play anything like a Cyrus or anything like that, I suppose. So all in all, I didn't play around how, and I could have gotten knocked out here, but I did not. I think, like I said, my calculations, I wanted 20 more damage on Primarina, just so I could deal 120 with my INDEEDEE and potentially knock it out, dealing 120 damage total. CRESSELIA is also pretty susceptible to INDEEDEE. It stacks energy on itself. It ends up with this ludicrous amount of HP, with like this reuniclous amount of HP. Like if I had decided to heal up my CRESSELIA here, I could have, you know, had like 9 energy on it, and INDEEDEE would have a field day with that. But not that my opponent's going to be able to attack with INDEEDEE. They only have water energy. But I did go ahead and now do the INDEEDEE play. So now if they Cyrus me, they can't heal. And if they heal but know how, INDEEDEE knocks them out. I do believe my opponent AFKs at some point during this match. And whenever that does happen, I will kind of just cut ahead, and we won't have to worry too much about that. Let me know what you think of this post-match commentary. Do you like it? I feel like I can be a little bit more insightful, see some lines that I was unable to see when I first played the match. They do heal up to 140 again here, but like I said, they're unable to play How and Cyrus in the same turn. I think the wisest choice here is to just go for another attack with INDEEDEE. And that just puts them so far out of healing range, especially because I have Gardevoir on the bench. It gets INDEEDEE up in one turn. So INDEEDEE's just mad chilling here. So I get my INDEEDEE all ready to go, and then my opponent has been disconnected for a very long time. Maybe they were hoping that I would disconnect and just give them their emblem reward, but that's not the case. I do like to play these anti-meta decks into, you know, the try-hard events, the sweaty events. My opponent's disconnecting, so I'm not going to waste your time by rambling any longer. I will see you once they get back, and once I KO their Primarina. 3, 2, 1. My opponent's turn has now ended. They stalled me out. I didn't want to waste any more of my time, but I did want to KO them with CRESSELIA just because, you know, it is the star of this deck. It stalled me to victory, so we're going to go ahead and give it the KO on Primarina and win the match. And that'll be that. Hello. This is a kind of post-commentary over this match, just because I feel that it was a very, very good match, but I had my microphone pointing away from me stupidly while I was recording the commentary. This was a very long, drawn-out match that I feel showcases Primarina, or not Primarina, it showcases CRESSELIA quite well. My opponent is playing Poplio. I am playing against a Suicune, Milotic, Primarina type hybrid deck. I'm not 100% certain what all of the cards that my opponent was running. They spend an awful long time there just deciding that they're going to put their Poplio down before playing a Pokeball. At this point, I'm trying to predict, like, what is in that Pokeball. Is it possibly Suicune? Is it possibly something else, or INDEEDEE? Because INDEEDEE is a very common healing Pokemon run in these kinds of decks, but it ends up being a Feebas, and I expected just a pure Primarina Milotic deck at this point, and I was just, you know, trying to find my routes, find my parts and pieces to get my Gardevoir out. It doesn't appear to have worked out very much for me at this early stage in the game. I'm still debating the existence of an Iono within this deck. It seems to help sometimes. It seems to kind of act as like a miniature red card and or Mars, since a lot of folks are playing their hand down to such ridiculously small sizes in the meta right now. I've been experimenting with one Iono, one Copycat as a draw engine, but they're going to go ahead and just put my CRESSELIA to sleep. I will attempt to wake up, and I succeed. Not that it matters very much on this turn, just because CRESSELIA requires 3 energy to attack, and I don't necessarily have access to a third energy at this point. I don't really think there's a line here, even where I retreat my CRESSELIA into my INDEEDEE. My INDEEDEE's a little bit more squishy than my CRESSELIA, and they deal the same damage to Primarina at this point, which would have 2 energy. Of course, if they're playing Primarina EX, INDEEDEE might be able to do more than CRESSELIA necessarily, but at the same time I'm afraid of something like a How, so I'm not really intending on evolving my Gardevoir just to retreat and remove 2 energy from CRESSELIA. I heal here for about 40 damage, I believe. I think I debated using the Pokemon Center lady to heal up to 160 plus my cape, but I decided against playing my cape because I wasn't expecting them to do anything like play a Primarina out. They had no way to put enough energy onto it. My opponent's deck has a lot of healing. I think they're playing 2 copies of Lily. I had my suspicions that they were playing a second Feebas and second Milotic, but I don't think they ever played down a second Feebas. Suicune I was a little bit afraid of, just because it does have the capability of KOing CRESSELIA with a full board. But it was not necessarily within my calculations at this point, especially because they didn't put an energy on it. I wasn't the most concerned. Reading my opponent's deck, they seemed to be running a lot of healing, so I was very doubtful that they were running anything like an elemental switch at this point. And I was about to get my Gardevoir out and start just being able to completely undo all of the damage that their Primarina was able to do to me. just because 1 energy from Gardevoir's ability, 20 HP from INDEEDEE, and then a 2nd energy from my Energy Zone just heals Cresselia for 60. It's able to completely ignore anything that the Primarina is able to do with it. So it just ends up being like a stall battle for the Titans. I think I decided against playing Poke Center Lady there just because I wanted to prioritize like the extra 10 HP for some reason. I played Iono because at this point my opponent has 3 cards, so I'm not necessarily helping them out a whole ton. Not any more than I'm helping myself out. It's kind of like a later game-ish red card. We both have drawn similarly, so we kind of have the same amount of stuff in their deck. I don't necessarily know what they're going for, but I do know that I am going to be able to very slowly whittle their Primarina and or healing supplies down. I feel like my opponent was playing a pretty cool deck. It's very tanky, very stall heavy, very, you know, you can heal for 30 HP every turn with Primarina. I would assume at this stage they may have even been running something like a 2nd regular Primarina, just because being able to heal for 60 every turn is pretty ridiculous. They're spec'd into being able to stall a lot. Maybe they're running 1 Feebas, since Feebas only has 30 HP, and if there's anything you don't want in your active spot, it is a Feebas with 30 HP. Milotic does also allow them access to essentially a 2nd Lily, able to heal a stage 2 for 60 HP. It also works for Suicune, and if they use that plus Primarina, they're able to heal Suicune for 120 in 1 turn, assuming they have a 2nd Primarina anyway, which is absolutely ridiculous. It pretty much means their Suicune is in the same situation as my Cresselia, where the only way really to KO it is to KO it in 1 turn. Or just very slowly whittle it down. I was looking for my 2nd INDEEDEE at this point, since I had all of the basic Pokemon out of my deck. Play Professor's Research. Perhaps I was looking for another Gardevoir. Perhaps, like, I don't necessarily remember what I was looking for. I think I was looking for my 2nd Cape. And then I go ahead and play all of the abilities out. And Cresselia gets healed by 60. So I didn't take a whole lot of damage. I didn't put my 2nd INDEEDEE on the bench at this point because it kept Cresselia at 120 HP. I wasn't worried about Primarina EX yet, since it doesn't have enough energy to deal its 100 damage, plus it seemed like they were more interested in building Suicune at that point. Suicune's going to be able to damage me for 100, though, so maybe I should have looked for, you know, maybe Pokemon Center Lady. Maybe I should have played out my 2nd INDEEDEE. I would have been able to heal my Cresselia for 80 damage at this point, which would have taken me out of range of Suicune at least for 1. Maybe not necessarily a bad idea. Gardevoir is able to do things and get INDEEDEE online in 1 turn with its ability. Post-match commentary is hard, man. I also debated playing my 2nd Cresselia out this turn. I think I was waiting 1 more turn, just because I was worried about Suicune being able to one-shot it, and I wanted to be able to deal 80 damage to it with my Cresselia, put it down to 60, which would make it go up to 90, provided they didn't bench another Milotic. But that would take another turn or 2. It would allow Suicune to survive, I think, a 3rd smack of 80, because it would be at 90, I'd hit it for 80, it would heal for 30, which would put it at 40, it would heal for 60, which would put it at 100, so yeah, I would have been able to live a 2nd Cresselia, or a 3rd attack, rather. Now I thought about putting down my other Cresselia, because I can heal my Cresselia up to like 110 or something like that. But at that point, I felt it was a moot point to keep going. I could have played Pokemon Center Lady. No, you know, I think I should have waited one more turn, because it would have gotten one more turn out of this Cresselia, and it could have potentially gotten me. You know, I could have benched it, put my other Cresselia away. If they have a Cyrus, then they're definitely only running one with how many cards they're running in this deck. So it would have saved me from a Cyrus, and then I could have maybe like healed my Cresselia up by like 40, and then with my Pokemon Center Lady, that would have been at 70. After getting hit by Primarina, even with a How, it would be at about 80, and I would have been able to heal much better. So I think I actually had a better line here than I played, but it's a lot harder to see these kinds of lines when you're playing a match. I'm sure folks who play this game pretty religiously understand. I didn't promote my INDEEDEE just because I was worried about How, which allows Primarina to deal plus 30 damage, which is not very good. It would have been able to one-shot my INDEEDEE. Maybe if I had gotten my cape, I could have promoted my INDEEDEE there. Perhaps I should have, like, you know, played down my Ralts. I could have played Copycat, and then I had one more card left in my deck at this point, I think. One or two cards. I would have had a very high chance of getting my Giant Cape, I think, if I had potentially played my cards right, but you never know with this kind of thing. Taking 100 damage, I think I had a thought like, you know, Giant Cape, I can play Poke Center Lady, I can make sure Cresselia survives one more turn, and then maybe pivot it out and attack with INDEEDEE, deal a large chunk of damage to Primarina, but I really did need my Cresselia for one more turn. So perhaps if I had gotten my cape, I would have been in a little bit better standings, but at that point it just is what it is, and you do your best. It's coming to the end of the game now. I think I didn't play Pokemon Center Lady yet, but this in hindsight was not a very good idea. It would have bumped my Cresselia up to 30 HP. I would have been able to heal for 80 and then live one more turn. My opponents played both their Lilies, so they wouldn't have been able to quite heal their Primarina. They didn't play down a second Feebas either, which makes me suspect that they never had a second one to begin with. So they play their How, they deal 130 damage to me, and I think... let me see, I would have healed for 80, which would have put me to 90. Honestly, I think I just wasn't thinking at this point. It has been a very long day, and I'm recording this at the end of the day, and I'm recording the post-match commentary at the end of this all as well. So I may be even inaccurate in this. Either which way, GG's to my opponent. I just kind of misplayed. I didn't do the best that I could. But you do what you can. CRESSELIA EX is only so good. But I think that this match is very, very interesting and definitely worth including in the recording. I do have one other match that I thought was very good as well that I will be doing post commentary over. It's a fun game. I really like the meta at the moment. It's incredibly fun. And then they play Melodious Healing even though they don't need to, because, you know, that's funny. And that was a very, very, very good game. We are going first against a fighting deck. We can start INDEEDEE or Ralts. I am going to elect to start INDEEDEE. We will play my Ralts down just in case we're able to evolve into Gardevoir next turn. It looks like we're going against the Ditto Fighting Box. We do have my Cresselia here as well. I am going to thin a basic Pokemon out of my deck. I would have preferred it be INDEEDEE just so I have access to the healing, but it is what it is. My opponent is drawing a basic, which appears to be a Hitmontop. CRESSELIA can be healed by any energy, but they are going to go for my Ralts. I think I will play Iono in an attempt to get a better hand. My opponent doesn't appear to have any important cards, but they don't appear to have any cards that will necessarily help them. And I will be able to one-shot Ditto with 60 damage. Perhaps I should have played my Pokemon Center Lady. They are going to play red card, which does not really change very much for me at this moment. In fact, if anything, it just gave me my INDEEDEE. It took away a Professor's Research. Perhaps they were playing red card to thin their hand before they played Copycat to potentially unbrick themselves. One thing I have come to find that I like about Iono is it has the ability to brick your opponent. I no longer need to play this cape onto Kirlia. Where is my Gardevoir? So that I can get CRESSELIA going. Lots of INDEEDEE showcase today. But I will be able to play Giant Cape now. They conceded, never mind. We are going second again, for perhaps like the 8th time tonight. We do have our Ralts and our Kirlia as well as an INDEEDEE, so I am going to go ahead and play every option down onto my bench. My opponent is running some sort of Leafeon deck at this moment in time. Hopefully I can find my Gardevoir, but any damage that the opponent's Eevee does to me, I will be able to heal past. Playing Professor's Research, assumably to look for their Leafeon. They did not find it. Play Pokeball just to thin out my deck. It is another CRESSELIA. I'm not going to play out the other basic, since I don't know if I want my other CRESSELIA yet. I cannot evolve my Ralts either. Couple of cards that could help me here are Copycat or Iono to possibly help me search for better cards. Professor's Research is always welcome. I could also pull a Gardevoir that would guarantee get me my CRESSELIA online and healing 60 damage per turn. But they are going to play out their Bulbasaur. Perhaps they are going to start building it. They are going to put the energy onto their Eevee and attack me. I will be able to heal past this, even just by putting energy onto my CRESSELIA. It may be better in the long run here to play out my second CRESSELIA. Do not know when my opponent is going to find their Leafeon. They are going to retreat and probably play Synthesis with Ivysaur. I will be able to deal 80 damage to them here. It appears they are playing Giant Cape. Not Giant Cape, Leaf Cape, which gives their grass Pokemon plus 30 HP. I have a Giant Cape of my own. I think I will be able to safely attack with CRESSELIA here. It is a coin flip whether or not I survive their Venusaur, if they have their Venusaur, which they do, but at the very least the poison damage will not KO me. INDEEDEE will deal 150 damage, so that is the threshold I will need to get past. I will very likely equip my cape to my other INDEEDEE. I think I am going to look to play May to potentially pull my Gardevoir or my other INDEEDEE. Pulling Gardevoir here, I think, was very important. And then I can put a cape onto INDEEDEE, which will allow it to attack Venusaur twice. I am going to go ahead and heal CRESSELIA as much as possible. They will not be able to play their Leafeon out to KO me, as it does not have enough energy. Falling asleep is unfortunate there. but INDEEDEE will be able to attack their Venusaur twice. Perhaps I wanted my other CRESSELIA to be able to retreat. I'm not necessarily afraid of their Venusaur healing. INDEEDEE will deal 150 damage and it will not be able to heal past that. So if they attack my INDEEDEE with Venusaur, they will risk that. And I have my other INDEEDEE as well. I still have Pokemon Center Lady in my deck. And retreating their Venusaur is not a good idea. They will not be able to rebuild it in time. And I'm very doubtful that my opponent is running Cyrus. Do they go for the coin flip victory is the real question. I have flipped tails twice. It appears they are going to elect to attack me with Leafeon. Do they have a second Leaf Cape? Not that it matters very much. Their Leafeon won't survive long enough for them to get their Venusaur online. Sabrina is not too scary, since I can just attack with my other INDEEDEE, as I have my Gardevoir to be able to give it energy. And I will be able to heal past what my opponent is able to attack for. I'm going to go ahead and play Copycat, as Rare Candy is useless to me, and I would rather have 4 cards. This is my other CRESSELIA. I think I am going to elect to retreat and attack with my other INDEEDEE, just so I can place an energy on my CRESSELIA and have it up for next turn with Gardevoir. I will be able to use Pokemon Center Lady to heal my other INDEEDEE, although it may perhaps be better used on my current INDEEDEE just to get it out of range of Venusaur. They are probably waiting on their healing cards, but it does not appear that they've drawn any at this moment in time. Giant Cape is very important as it takes INDEEDEE out of range of Venusaur's poison. Venusaur will always deal 130 damage every turn. I don't know what my opponent is doing. They are going to play Cyrus to get my other INDEEDEE up, but that does mean that they do not have their other Cyrus, and in fact, they missed their window to attack, so I will be able to safely get this INDEEDEE out of Cyrus range and KO with my other INDEEDEE. I could have put my energy onto CRESSELIA, but it doesn't matter too much. They conceded. GG. Guess they didn't draw their heals. So that was my CRESSELIA EX deck. One of my moderators, Isapit Kitsune, made the base for this deck. He had the idea for CRESSELIA EX. I just refined it as much as possible. I feel like you could replace Iono in this deck. Pokemon Center Lady seems very good as well. The idea, realistically, is just to heal CRESSELIA EX a metric crap ton using its ability, which heals it for 20 whenever you attach a energy to it. INDEEDEE heals the active Pokemon for 20 every turn. Giant Cape is very good. Pokeball, Professor's Research, Iono, and Copycat, as well as May, just help you draw for your Pokemon. And that is all. If you want to see more spicy cooks in the future, please press like and subscribe. And I will see y'all in the next video. And that'll be it.